It's funny, this whole, so far in the marathon, I've been doing exactly what I've done in previous years, and I'm just getting absolutely smashed, like no score whatsoever, which is a bit
Really?
awkward. Yeah.
Wow.
I guess all you can do is all you can do, isn't it?
Yeah, the main thing is to try, and then that's the real result. How much you do, you've not got much control over, but you can control how hard you try.
Okay, so this podcast episode could be just called Marathon. So we just talk about the marathon because it is a very special time of the year. And I know a lot of devotees were looking for some kind of something to listen to inspire them in their marathon.
Yeah.
So I know that how many marathons have you partaken in?
Over 40.
Oof. That's kind of mind blowing. You're taking part this year also?
Yeah, I'm having a little reprieve, and then I'll launch into it on the first Monday of December, and then I'll travel.
Okay, cool. So, for people, have you got any amazing marathon stories or anything like that you've experienced in your 40 years of marathon doing?
Well, to just give a kind of summary overview, a general theme on marathons is the time to break barriers. It's the time to go beyond your preconceived ideas of what your limits were. Runners call it the pain barrier. When you run a marathon, you'll hit a pain barrier and your body will be screaming that you have to stop or you're going to die. And if you're experienced, you'll know that that's not true and you'll push on. And then the pain will go away, you get an extra burst of energy, and then you'll do much more than you thought was possible for you. So marathons, in the past, where I've experienced this, I've broken through barriers like, 300 was the biggest on the street for me, then 400, then 5, then 6, then finally did 1,000. And there's just certain preconceived ideas of how much you think you're able to do. And then the marathon gives you a chance to break free from that. Another thing what's interesting about a marathon, which you do experience throughout the year on Sankirtan, is generally after you've had a good day on Sankirtan, when you stop, everything drops away, and the next day you're back to square one, and you're trying to build up and have another good day. On a marathon, if you break through and you do really well, and the time in between is just like very intensely cut down to the bare minimum, then you hit the street the next day on the same level that you left the street on the last day, and then you can take it up another notch, then the same the next day, and then take it up another notch. Over a short period of time. I wouldn't try and do that for longer than a week, actually. Marathon really starts in the last week. That's when you pull all the stops out. It's getting near Christmas, everyone's getting more generous, so the money's flowing in. You're attached to the money, you're getting the money, so then you're inspired, so then you start getting more fired up, and then everything culminates December 24th, and then back to square one after the December the 24th. Back to being in Maya.
Yeah. I think it's like a really good opportunity as well, like to kind of sharpen your routine and make everything about one thing. For like this period of time, we can make everything, all our sadhana, all of our practice, our waking up, our eating, our sleeping is all about book distribution. And that is kind
especially
of
our japa.
Yeah, the japa.
Yeah. Well, the japa generally gets more intense during the marathon. So I've been encouraging the devotees on my japa sangha that you can be on a marathon all year round, because all year round you can chant intense japa. We tend to chant intense japa when we're like, just about to fall out of a 10-floor building or something, when the situation's intense, then suddenly we're really focusing and calling out for Krishna's help. So we could do that any day of the year if we wanted to. Just look at the mood that you're in when you're chanting japa, you're begging Krishna, please reciprocate, please empower me. Normally, if you're not going out in the Sankirtan, you're kind of chanting your japa a bit lackadaisical, thinking, I'll probably be peeling the potatoes, and then I'll be doing that. And he was a bit cheeky yesterday, wasn't he, the way he served me that halal, but it went all up the front of my kirtan. He's always been a bit cheeky. I've never really, and you're just kind of chanting like that, with all that going on. But when you're on a marathon, it's like, you haven't got time to mess about worrying about all this. You've really got to get into the chanting and focus, otherwise you're going to get hammered on the street, you know.
Yeah. It's, another thing with the marathon as well is that things become a little bit more magical. That's what I found. Like you have a
Yeah,
lot of like synchronicities, and especially if you can lean into your reading, it's like Prabhupada. Like the books become a lot more extra dimensional, and they usually connect with the day. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if
yeah.
you've experienced that, but it's
Yeah, generally what devotees tend to do is they think, I need to intensify on the marathon, so that means I'll cram everything else in. I'll cram my rounds in, I'll cram some reading in, and then I'll have more time to get out on the street. But if it's not good quality reading and it's not good quality japa, then although you're getting longer out on the street, it's of a lower quality of consciousness that you're doing it in. So it's hard to be able to increase the quality of the sadhana, and then that will reflect on our ability to engage people in Sankirtan. It may even be an idea to chant some extra rounds. If you're finding it difficult, already we're down to the bare minimum with 16 rounds, and actually Lord Chaitanya said he wouldn't eat in the house of anyone unless they chanted a lap of rounds, which is 100,000 names, which is 64 rounds. So we do the bare minimum of 16, and sometimes we realize it's not enough. Now that I'm away for a break, I'm chanting more than 16, and I'm realizing you don't really get into your japa until you've chanted a few extra after the 16. You're just warming up with the 16. So if you're out there and you don't feel sufficiently that you're not really connecting with people, you're not really coming up with the right comments at the right time, and it's just not flowing, then just go back to your japa, look at your japa, and see if you can improve that.
yeah, it's good because you can actually plan your day around that. Like the problems that you come up with today, you can figure out, okay, how can I improve tomorrow
Yeah.
to like overcome this problem? Like maybe I went to bed too late, or yeah, it's definitely a balancing act.
One thing that can help, if you're struggling on Sankirtan and you're not getting the result that you want, we tend to go by days. So we start and it's not so good. We think, okay, it's going to be a bad day today. And then we start and it's going well. We think, oh, it's going to be a good day today. But you could do that with the hours. You can say, oh, that was a bad hour. And then you could start the next hour. Say, okay, let's see if we can do better in this hour. And you go hour by hour instead. And the day goes a lot faster when you break it down like that. And in between each hour, if it's really tough, you could maybe say every hour or every 2 hours, I'll just have a break, I'll just chant one round, or I'll have a cup of tea and a biscuit, and then I'll get started again, just to break it up a little bit more, so that you can separate 1 hour from another. Okay, that was a total rubbish hour. Let's try and have a really good one now.
What would you say to devotees that are, so they're seeing the other devotees that are going out, they're collecting massive amounts, and they feel like bad about themselves, they feel like they got to, you got to impress the temple president somehow, collect enough money, and they just feel that kind of pressure, and that's actually hurting their performance on the street.
Well, that's very short term. The Shreyas and Prayas are very short term, is the immediate score as the all in all. And it is, I mean, I can't even remember now how much I collected 20 years ago. But if I'd had a nice exchange with somebody, or phoned up my Sankirtan lead and he said something really encouraging to me, those memories you stay attached to. So try and go beyond the superficialities of the amount that you're doing, and try and look at the consciousness that you're doing it in, because I've been with devotees who've done much better than me on Sankirtan, and they're not here now. So if you're measuring the result of Sankirtan, one is how much Lakshmi's in the bag and how many books went out. That's one way of measuring it. Or if you have a tape measure out of time, measure the devotee's result over 10 years. As you're still fully engaged after 10 years. That's a better way of measuring the results of Sankirtan.
So would you say, like, what's the best motivation for doing the marathon? Would you say it's for your own purification, or for helping others, or for collecting Lakshmi, or is it all of them? Or
Well, you could be wanting to go out there and do really big so that everyone will recognize you, and you may think, actually, that's not such a good motivation. I should do this just because I want to have pure love of God. But you don't want to have pure love of God. You don't want that. So better to just be honest and say, yeah, well, actually, I want to do really big so that everybody will bow down and worship me. And but therefore I'll pursue this very intensely. Like Dhruv Maharaj, it's described that his devotional service was Tivrena. It was very intense, and that attracted the Lord. Even though he had a huge agenda, the Lord was attracted by his Tivrena. So, you know, you may realize it's not such good motivation, but the fact is that is the motivation. That you'd like to beat everybody else and be the number one. And, you know, so it's not happening right now, okay. And you would like to have a different motivation, but you haven't, you've got this one. So then you just have to apply yourself more intensely to pursue that goal. If you're not very intense and you've got the wrong motivation, then you're going to get nowhere. But if you've got the wrong motivation and you're really intense about it, then the intensity will attract the Lord, and when he becomes attracted and you connect with him, then you'll become purified of it. Just like Dhruv Maharaj, once he saw the Lord, it's like, who wants a kingdom bigger than my father's? These are all useless. Now I have the Lord. How would you want anything more than this? But before that, Narada-Muni was trying to convince Dhruv Maharaj, look, that's not a good motivation, you know, you shouldn't, and he couldn't convince him. So pursue whatever your motivations are, but do it very intensely for Krishna, and then you'll become purified of it. Otherwise, you can't just intellectualize and think, well, actually, that's not a good motivation. I should do this because I just want to be a particle of dust on the temple president's toe. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, let's go and do that. And your heart's like, well, it sounds good on paper, but I'm not into that. What are you talking about, you know? Let's be real.
Nice. What would you say to like devotees that feel like they just like they can't, because you know when you're at the top and you're competing for the top position, that's one thing. Like I've been in that position in previous years. I'm speaking of myself now. Now I feel like I just don't have the same almost like Shakti or ability to do what I used to do. How do you like reconcile that? Because it's like it's not that you want to be the best. It's just you want to be like almost you just want to be good enough. Because it's hard to even scrape together a small score.
Well, you have to think, what does Krishna want? Because looking back myself, if I had done really small on Sankirtan, Krishna would have taken me off, and then maybe I would have been an artist, I'd have been painting, but maybe that would have been more problematic for me in the long run. But there are other devotees that they go out and they do Sankirtan and they do okay, but then it turns out that it'd be a lot more useful if they were doing this or that instead. So we don't know what it is Krishna wants to use us for ultimately, you know. If you're absolutely cleaning up on Sankirtan and it doesn't take hardly any effort to do it, then you can be pretty sure that Krishna wants you to do it. But if you're finding it so difficult and it's just so hard for you to sustain it, then there's a chance that there's another service coming up for you just around the corner, you know.
There's what have you heard Dave Marita Maharaj's story about Sankirtan?
I've heard a few of his stories. Yeah.
Yeah, he was here maybe last year, and he was explaining. But he went out for something like 3 years constantly, and he just got completely smashed, obliterated, couldn't do a penny, like just really got rinsed. And then suddenly, like after 3 years, he broke through, and he started just doing massive, and he was like ecstatic, like, oh my God, this is it. I'm the Sankirtan. I'm the best guy there ever was. And then he got something like pneumonia. He got freezing cold. And the temple president had to pull him straight off. Like after 1 month of cleaning up, he got pulled off, and then he was then Krishna used him to translate the Chaitanya Charitamrita in that big CC marathon. So it's really interesting, like what you say. That's a much broader perspective than we're used to, than our mind presents. You know, because the mind is like in there getting smashed. Oh, I'm useless. I'll never be good for anything. But Krishna's plan is more vast than that, it seems.
It's false. The duality of false ego is when you do well, then you want the recognition for it. But when you don't do well, then that's also your fault. So the quicker you get free from false ego, then if you do well, oh, Krishna's been very kind. And if you don't do very well, oh, Krishna's not decided to give me a result. It doesn't affect you as much. It affects you very intensely when you're the doer. So the more you can get free of your false ego, and be relieved of that tendency to identify with the score as your own doing, then, like Krishna says, you only have a right to perform your duty. You're not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of activities, and never consider not doing your duty. So you just do your duty. And if during the course of doing your duty, your authorities decide, well, I think we can find a better duty for him to do than this, then that's fine. You're malleable. And if they want you to go out there and do peanuts for 3 years, then maybe that's going to be really good. Maybe 3 years of doing peanuts is going to be a very powerful foundation for whatever you do after that. You become very, very deeply rooted in anything, and you're not deterred by the result.
Yeah, it's amazing how that lamentation is the flip side of like jubilation. Like if you're doing amazing, yes, I'm amazing, or oh, I'm doing so terrible, I'm so useless. There's no, it's the same. It's all false ego. It's about me.
Yeah, yeah. And there's always duality with false ego. There's always the upside, and then however up you go, that's how much down you have to go as well. So it's disorientating, it's precarious, and it's not sustainable. Yeah, it's good that you're going through it, because sometimes the reason why Krishna gives the result is just because if he didn't, the devotee would go away. So when Krishna is not giving the result, then you can know that Krishna considers you strong enough now to meet with defeat and failure, and he thinks that you're going to be strong enough to push on.
Nice. That's some Jedi Master perspective warping with there. I appreciate that. That's awesome. So I'm sure other devotees will find that useful as well if they're struggling out on the street and help them to be detached. I gotta go now because I should be out distributing right now. I just little recharge.
Okay.
I think a little short episode is good for people because they are on the marathon. Just something to squeeze in there. But thanks for your time. And
okay.
We'll do another one. Awesome. Thanks, Dusha. Have fun in Budapest. Enjoy all of Raj Boga.
Hi-yo!